Okay, so let's talk about Redshift inside Maya. So again, if you go to the Redshift menu later when you install, it's pretty simple actually. So there's only like physical light, IES, portal, and DERM. So that's pretty much what the light available in Redshift. Okay, so let's go through each one of them. Now, so if you want to create like things like area light, point light, spotlight, and directional, that is categorized under physical light. Okay, so first you must create physical light, then change its light type to whatever light that you desire. So for example, if you want to choose the area, you choose area, a point, and so on and so on. Alright, so that's under physical light. Now, let's just go through this theory, then we can move on to the practical part later. Now, this is just a common light attributes, or very general, right? If you create a light, this is the typical kind of settings or attributes that you will see, right? If you create a physical light. Okay, so the first one is mode, second one is intensity multiplier, right? You guys can probably guess like what it is. And decay, we've been through that in year 1. And we got shape, mesh, shadow, and volume. Okay, so we go through these. Okay, next. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that some of these settings may not be available, right, for one light or the other. Let's say like I choose spotlight, right? There are some settings that's only available for spotlight. Okay, and also there are settings that are only available for area and point and directional. Okay, because each light, it's unique and it has like different characteristic. Okay, so let's go through the first one, mode. Now, we've been through this before, right? So there are two types of mode, right? First one is color, and the second one is temperature. So a color, if you choose this mode to color, you can define your light color to any color that you choose. Right? It's very free. It's like very good in a way. But if you want to choose something like more realistic, right? You change the mode to temperature. Okay. So what it means, like you put the temperature value for your mode, so it will resulting into something like this. Okay. So when you change the color to temperature, you cannot choose the color anymore, because you define the color by putting the temperature, which resulting in a much more realistic render. Okay, so again, so color temperature is based on the value that you put in. Okay, again, I have like a comparison. So this is the kind of light color that you would see in a real life scenario. So this is a temperature mode, whereas on the bottom one is a color. Okay, so both have its use basically. So if you want to use the more realistic render, then you would choose temperature. Okay, but if you want to do something like more vibrant, like more magical scene, then you might want to choose color, because then when you mode set to color, you can choose any color for your light color. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, again, this is like the temperature color that you can choose. So there is not much option in terms of color when it comes to the temperature color, because you're defining its color by the temperature value. So this is, so at 2000 is probably equal to orange, and 6500 it's somewhere around this blue. So this value in between, it's pretty much like that. Alright, so that's temperature color. Now, moving on, we have intensity multiplier. Okay, so this is the attributes that are responsible for brighter or darker. Now, if I have an option like this, right, intensity multiplier and exposure, I usually tweak the exposure value and I would leave these on. Okay, so both actually responsible for lighting, to make things darker or brighter, right? But it's just different attribute, right? Or different the way it processed in the background. Okay, so exposure value is very sensitive. So if I put 1 and I put like 10, then like 10 and 20, you can see the change really fast in the scene. Whereas intensity multiplier, then you have to increase quite a bit. Okay, but again, if there is no option for me to tweak the exposure, I would then go for intensity multiplier. Okay, so I would go back to exposure if I have exposure value for me to tweak, and I would leave this thing on all the time. Okay, so the way it works, it will use this value and times the exposure. Okay, that's how the intensity multiplier and exposure is. Now, moving on, we have decay, right? I think you're pretty much familiar with decay. So light is energy, so as it goes further away from the light source, right, it will eventually die, right? So in this example, the decay set to none, right? So the result is very unrealistic. So it goes from infinity to infinity, right? Whereas the one on the right, okay, it's very realistic because it is further away from the light source, it becomes darker and darker, right? So by default, Redshift set the decay mode to inverse square, and I don't usually touch the setting at all. Alright, just leave it as it is. Now, shape. Shape attributes only available to area light, right? So in here, I have my area. This is my default setting, and if I change the shape to this, I'll get something like that: sphere, cylinder, and I can even put the mesh, right, or object. Now, mesh light, right, is good usually if you want to create like neon sign, right? Or I can also put some object into it and use that object as light source. Okay. Now, something that you have to keep in mind is that when you want to create a neon sign, I already tested. Like, it's better to use the mesh light as compared to condense enough the geometry, because it will produce less noise, right? And it's much visible when it comes to a closer render. Okay, moving on, we have shadow. Right, it's very simple like setting. So this one have a solid black shadow, and this one is not so solid, and you can have the shadow off. Okay, very simple setting. And volume. Now here I have a render of this sphere. So this one does not have volume or God's ray, they call it, and this one have a God's ray. So it's the volume effect that is created by this light. Okay, and this is a very intense one. Now, when it comes to volume rendering, there are two things you have to keep in mind. Okay, so this is the first setting that you have to turn on. Okay, so basically you're telling Redshift to, hey, there will be like volume rendering happening in the scene, right? And once you finish setting this one, you have to go back to designated light and increase the contribution scale to 1, right? So telling Redshift, okay, this light will be contributing 100% if you set this to 1 for its volume. So if I go back to this scenario, I probably guess there will be like spotlight here. So this spotlight will be responsible for that volumetric lighting, and I have to turn this setting equal to 1, and I get something like that. Right? Remember, there are two things to do if you want to do a volumetric light. Okay, so that's all there is for physical light. We're gonna move on to IES quickly. Right, I think you've been through already. So this is working exactly the same like Arnold IES. So you have to get the IES file from the internet and put into the light to create this nice looking profile. Right, this is something that is very difficult to create if you want to use it manually. So we're relying a lot on this IES file. Right, and you can get this nice profile really easy. Okay, so that's IES. Now, moving on, okay, portal light. So again, it works exactly the same like Arnold portal light. So the way it works is that it will help to reduce or eliminate the noise that coming from outside lighting. Okay, so in this example, right, I have light in the scene without applying the portal light, and as you can see, the interior render is pretty much very noisy. Okay, so once I apply the portal light in the scene, okay, so the noise is not so bad. I mean, it's still there, but it's much better than the first render. Okay, there's still some setting you have to be tweaked, but this portal light will help you eliminate that kind of noise. Okay, so it's very easy to use. Now, moving on, we have Dome. Right, so Dome works with this map. Alright, this is a special image that you have to put into the light itself. So this is what the dome look like. Right, so it's half sphere, and you can put like a special image inside that light. Okay, and this kind of method usually used to create a much more realistic render, things like CG movie or games and so on and so on. Okay, and this is what the render look like when you use HDRI plug into the dome light. Okay, so it's very realistic. And again, the dome light require you to have a special HDRI map. Okay, and what you have to pay attention is that how the map texture is laid out. Okay, so if I go back 2 more slides, you see here there is the map type to set to spherical, and if you go back here, it's actually pointing to this one. Right, so if you plug this HDRI while it's set up to spherical, it may not work properly. Right, so you have to choose the correct map type and the correct HDRI map for this kind of dome light. And again, you can choose like any type of HDRI. It's free all over the internet. Okay, and that's all there is with the Redshift light